Okay, this is a continuation of Chapter 4. When last we met, we were discussing key performance indicators, or benchmarks. And of course, benchmarks are measurements, but they are optimal measurements as it relates to the performance of a system or a process, which may have a system embedded in it or at least partially embedded in it. And so a benchmark is continually measuring system results and comparing those results to what the benchmark values are. That is the optimal values. And the benchmark values may be derived from internal measurements. They may be derived from industry standards. For example, the benchmark as it relates to call centers, if you're running a call center and someone calls you, then that benchmark time it takes for that call to be answered, in other words, a human being to answer them, is 60 to 90 seconds. And if you're not operating within that benchmark, then you've got problems with your process, your support process, which probably is associated with things like staffing or perhaps it has something to do with your call management system. Okay, so there are two kinds of metrics. There are efficiency metrics, which is measuring the use of information systems or information technology to do things better, stronger, faster, more accurately. The effectiveness metric, on the other hand, is a measurement, and it may include some efficiency metrics, but what you're really doing when you have effectiveness measurements, you're measuring the impact that it has on business processes and underlying activities or steps in the process, including goals of a business, which are customer satisfaction or the acquisition of new customers, sales numbers, revenue numbers, the numbers. Basically, we're using technology to produce better outcomes in a business, and of course, the goals of a business are related to profit and return on shareholder equity, among other goals. Efficiency metrics focus on technology, and here's where we're trying to improve. Again, we're trying to be faster. We're trying to be to be more accurate. We're trying to manage more data volume. So things like throughput, data throughput, the speed of transactions in which they're handled. System availability is an efficiency metric, because if your system is not available, then there's certainly some loss of efficiencies as it relates to customers who might be trying to interact with the system, or employees, for example. If you have systems that are down, employees oftentimes, especially information workers, they can't work. So system availability is critical. The accuracy of information, how much web traffic is there, and you can, as you'll see in just a moment, you can really dig down into web traffic and define what that is. You have response times. You have error rates. We want to diminish those. You're more efficient if you have to correct for fewer errors. And then scalability. Scalability relates to the ability of a system to scale up as demand is imposed on it. And being able to scale to meet that demand is a critical factor. Again, effectiveness metrics focus on how the investment in information systems and technology is helping the organization achieve its goals and the objectives associated with those goals. And of course, those goals are in support of its overlying strategy. So, how usable is your website, for example, usability. And there are a number of metrics you can use to verify usability. But overall usability is how effective is our website. How satisfied are your customers? Conversion rates, that is, you must be doing something right if you've got customers who are visiting your site or whom you're calling on, and they're converting into, their would-be customers or their leads, and now they convert into customers. There are financial, anything, if you think about cash flow statement, income statement, statement of owner's equity, these documents contain metrics that are an indication of how effective what you're doing in terms of IP of MIS investment is. Now, of course, there are other things besides MIS investment, but investment and application. But still, they certainly are. They certainly do illustrate metrics associated with how effective what we're doing in support of our strategy is working. Missed opportunities, new features, recommendations, all measurements of effectiveness. Remember this grid, because transformational initiatives are both achieve efficiencies as well as they're really, really effective. So if you look at modern business, like modern retailers, for example, online retailers, they really were transformational because they included enormous efficiency gains in terms of things like order fulfillment and supply chain management, but at the same time, they were really, really effective in acquiring new customers and retaining those customers, because they just kept, introducing new mechanisms that made life easier for customers. They didn't have to travel to the store, and they could do one-click ordering, and they can pay a one-time shipment fee, and they don't have to pay any shipping if it's shipped from Amazon. Plus, with paying the Amazon Prime fee, for example, they can watch videos. So there were, again, transformational initiatives. E-Trade, Charles Schwab, again, transformational. They introduced both efficiencies as well as servicing customers in a new and much more effective ways. Security, just mentioning, in the world of IT, is generally going to involve some kind of encryption. Security's going to involve added layers of scrambling the data, so which is encryption. So when you introduce a security measure, you're introducing inefficiencies. So there are trade-offs with, if you're running a website and to make your data secure, you're going to encrypt the data. You're also encrypting data between the clients and the server, and any data stored, we're going to encrypt that. We might even, if we've got a corporate portal and we've got folks in the field who are going to ask it, we require that they use a VPN, and that's encrypted transmission. So you create an encrypted tunnel through the public network, and that's more inefficient than not, but invariably those trade-offs are really worth it. Again, so just kind of a summary, optimal area here. If you're investing in information systems or information technology, the goal is, if you can win from an efficiency as well as an effectiveness perspective, that's the best of all worlds. Now, sometimes, you're going to invest in things like supply chain management software or logistics software, transportation software, and really the goal there is for optimizing efficiency, and that's okay. Doesn't mean we don't invest in it, just recognize that it may or may not result in transformation or the accomplishment of being perceived as a more effective organization by your constituency, whether it be suppliers, whether it be customers, or whatnot. The next few slides, we're just going to look at some metrics. So you might see some of these on exam, and basically I just, I require that you recognize them. So website metrics, there are a number, this by no means is a finite list, but you can, with a one thing I would mention about a website that everyone should be aware of is a website is the only virtual kind of store environment where you can literally be followed all around the store. And then you also can be followed around the web by companies like Google's AdSense technology, which was acquired when they bought a company called DoubleClick, and this has been about a decade ago. And DoubleClick uses cookies. Cookie is a text file that a web server can place in a protected area in your browser folder, and it uses it to uniquely identify you. That way, if that cookie is not deleted, when you navigate back to that server, it recognizes you. It may not know who you are. You still may be anonymous, but it recognizes that you've been here before. So Google's AdSense technology actually, again, allows the company to, it already enables the company to kind of track you around the web and, of course, place strategic advertisement on specific sources. What we call you're referred to as an affiliate. So that is, if you're an outdoor sportswear provider or retailer, and you might, as an affiliate, you might have an affiliate that makes trout fishing gear or waders or boots, and your advertisements might be placed on those sites because it's once somebody buys trout fishing gear, then maybe they want to buy some clothing to go trout fishing in, or they might want to buy waders. They don't like that. They might want to buy waders from your sporting goods store. So Google's AdSense is essentially what it does is kind of tracks you around, and based on traffic patterns, it does so in kind of an anonymous way, but based on traffic patterns, AdSense will develop that affiliate network for your business, your online business. So users, unique visitors, total number of sessions. Now we're not looking at unique visitors, just the number of basically hits that hit the website. Page views, kind of a metric that can be used to evaluate interest. The duration of the session, similar to page views. How many people hit the website and just bounce right straight off, meaning they really didn't mean to navigate there to begin with. Number of new sessions, that's number of site visitors who are new, so they're unique in some way. And then finally, conversion rate. Some other website metrics. Click through. They click on an ad and navigate to the site that was being advertised. Cost per 1,000 impressions. We've talked about abandoned registrations and shopping carts. What that actually means. Typically, abandoned registrations means maybe the entity or the firm is being a little bit too inquisitive, or in other words, asking for too much information. Abandoned shopping carts usually is an indication that something besides the registration is amiss. Usually an abandoned shopping cart might have to do with taxes, or the charging of taxes or charging of freight, the freight rate. Keywords, how effective are keywords? Now, this is related to advertising, to online advertising, and then calls to action, which is an evaluation of marketing strategies. Call center metrics. Number of callers who hang up, or how long does it take to answer a call. Hopefully, if you're using an interactive voice system, it shouldn't take long to do that at all. Time service factor, number of calls that are answered within 30 to 90 seconds. First call resolution, that's really about expertise and how well your folks are handling those calls. With the next few systems we're going to talk about, this is kind of a cursory introduction to enterprise class systems. So, if you implement an ERP system, which is going to have introduce integrated function to service production and accounting and human resources, and will include production planning and sales. You'll probably have, business intelligence models. So, obviously a very all-encompassing system. You have a centralized database. And one of the things that it represents is a wealth of metrics. You now can measure just about any function that's embedded in software you get a measurement for. So, and the thing is you just when introducing these systems, a lot of processes, information-based processes that might have been manual in the past, like calculating our inventory turnover or calculating labor costs. All that stuff's embedded in software now. Supply chain management is a similar type system, an enterprise class system, and what supply chain management software does is tracks inventory and supply information among the business processes and also across companies. What it basically does is ties the order to procurement or purchasing. So you don't purchase anything until an order or an adequate amount of orders hit the system, and then that drives the procurement. So you're replacing inventory that you might have already ordered and you have it on a shelf. You're replacing it now with information and coordination. And you coordinate among logistics providers, you coordinate among storage providers, you coordinate with your suppliers, and again, you create what's called a demand pull system. We're pulling the orders, or we're pulling the purchasing through the system by virtue of the orders that we're receiving from customers. So again, the goal in supply chain management is to replace that inventory, finished goods, work in process, and otherwise with information. We want to avoid speculative swings in inventory. And this is what happens in a supply chain. The further away a company is from a supplier or from a customer. So, if you're an automobile manufacturer, then you have tier 1 suppliers that you order from, and you order like the big parts, transmission, axles, the dashboard for the inside of the car. You order those from them. But they also have suppliers that they order from that make subcomponents to go into those things, like to go into the transmissions and to go into the dashboards. And then you have another layer beyond that. And what happens is the further away from the customer these individuals are, the more you're liable to get speculation. And the speculation materializes in the form of an additional inventory, because the thing you never want to have happen to you as a supplier, you never want to be caught with no product and an order. and being unable to meet an order deadline. You want to avoid that at all costs. So the further away you are from the customer, if the information is not transparent, then, and by the way, not all information, just the information germane to your business. You're a tire manufacturer. You manufacture tires. And then another company takes the tires and puts them on wheels, and then they sell them to BMW. But you manufacture tires. You only need to know how many wheels you're gonna have. You probably, given that most vehicles have 4 wheels, you could translate that easily into the number of vehicles that BMW is going to manufacture, or whatever the company is. Supply chain metrics. These are some examples of metrics you can get from supply chain management software. Back orders, the customer order, how many customers were delivered within the promised cycle time, or how many customer orders were delivered, what was their actual number. So promised order time versus actual number. What's the cycle time on replenishing inventory? How often do we turn inventory over? What's the lead time required for supplies? And of course the question would then be what supplies? What's the rate? What's the cost associated with carrying excess inventory? What is that cost? And then you got freight costs per unit shipped. So how much did it cost us based on the tonnage that we shipped? Transit time, on-time pickups. Again, all of them sound like supply chain. CRM, another enterprise class system. That's chapter 11. We will discuss it. And CRM collects data in the various channels that customers interact with the business. And the focus of CRM is on supporting sales, and then after the sale, customer service and support, and then also on the management, on the marketing side of things, actually creating marketing campaign and then analyzing how well that marketing campaign is done. Now, just to give you an idea, what the CRM system does is tracks the information relative to the customer for the duration of their life cycle with the customer, from the time they're just simply a potential customer known as a suspect, if you will, until they actually are beginning to repurchase products, so they've matured as a customer at that point. Just some metrics you would expect to get from a CRM, which includes marketing data, so leads generated, sales revenue in the pipeline, overall revenue, how many sales visits turn into qualified leads, how many leads then convert into marketing qualified leads. You've got a leads presented where, you got salespeople, they make calls, and then it actually converts into a leads worked. Deal sizes, new customers, again, things you would associate with a CRM. The balanced scorecard, I don't know. Sometimes I ask students about this, sometimes I don't. But basically, it's a model for measuring and managing strategic initiatives like enterprise resource planning and CRM and supply chain management. So when you implement these, the data, studies suggest that we should view the organization from how these systems have affected it from a learning and growth perspective, a business process perspective, a customer, and a financial. So here's an example scorecard. And you look at the customer perspectives. If the goals are new products, then the metrics are what percentage of sales have we made from the new products, and the percentage of sales from proprietary products. Preferred supplier is our goal. Share. So we want to be a preferred supplier. So what's the share of key accounts purchases we represent, or ranking? If we can get our hands on ranking by key account from our customer who buys from us. Innovation and learning. Goal is technology leadership. Measure is how long is it going to take to develop new leadership. Goal is manufacturing learning. That relates to the measure is process time to maturity. In other words, apparently we're measuring the process time. Focus on product, 80% of sales. And I'm assuming when you say focus on product, then that's how many of the things we sell do we actually produce? Okay, so again, looking at things from a financial perspective, a customer perspective, an internal business operations perspective, and innovation and learning. Now, that concludes the coverage of this particular chapter, and I will create a second video that will become available on Friday, and it will be a review of the material in Chapter 6, which is really about the characteristics of information. Okay, so that concludes this chapter.